G'day, and welcome back to Maintenance Break. Bite-sized insights, one break at a time. I'm Pete.
And I'm Drew. Pete, straight into it because this plays out more frequently than people like to admit. Monday morning, the electric drive haul fleet's landed, the crew's been through handover, and it's time for the first scheduled service. The planner sits down to plan out the first services, and there's nothing in the system to plan it against.
The CMMS is open, cursors blinking, and the functional location for that fleet doesn't even exist in the system yet.
That's not a hypothetical, Pete. I've watched that exact 15 minutes happen, and it's the second lens in our Operational Readiness series. We've done people. Today it's the lens nobody photographs at a project launch: systems.
Nobody sends out a memo the day the bill of materials actually gets verified and ready to deploy. But it's the lens that decides whether all that people work from last episode actually turns into anything on day one.
Exactly right. You can have the right operating philosophy, the right skills mix, a properly handed over team, and still have that team standing around on day one unable to do their job because the infrastructure that surrounds the asset isn't ready.
So let's start where it starts: master data. And I want to fold materials readiness into that same conversation because they're the same problem wearing two hats.
They are functional locations, the equipment hierarchy, maintenance plans, the bill of materials, the spares catalogue. That's the foundation everything else sits on, and it has to be loaded and verified before the first service, not built reactively after the first breakdown. And I want to stress verified, because loaded and correct are two different things. I remember reviewing a BOM for a service that listed 42 parts. When we actually walked the service with the guys, 12 of those parts were not required or the wrong parts for what was in the service sheet.
So the planner's booking out parts that don't exist or incorrect for the job at hand.
Every time. And that's arguably worse than an empty system, because at least empty tells you the truth. A populated but wrong system tells you a lie with confidence.
And that's before we even get to actually sourcing the right part.
Which is where materials readiness bites hardest. Supply chains have become more susceptible to global disruption, and lead times can blow out quickly if you're not across them. I've seen an 11-week lead time quoted on an operator's seat for a truck.
11 weeks. That's not a machine down for a shift, Drew. That's a machine down for a quarter.
And it's avoidable. This is a procurement phase conversation, not a first service surprise. What does it take to keep this running, and how long does it take to get here needs an answer before the order's signed, not when the part's already failed and the machine's waiting.
Second piece, procedures.
Standard work procedures, lubrication and fueling protocols, isolation and emergency procedures. They have to exist before the work starts. And here's the trap. When they don't exist, the work still gets done. The crew figures it out.
And everyone breathes a sigh of relief, but nobody writes it down.
We've all worked on a site where the senior tradesman took a redundancy, retired, or just changed jobs. Years of hard-won knowledge walks out the gate in one afternoon, and there wasn't a page of it written down.
That's not a people failure.
That's a process failure, Pete. The crew did their job. The system was never set up to capture what they knew.
Third piece, and it's the one that gets skipped because it doesn't stop the work on day one: the reporting and KPI framework.
The quiet one. What are you measuring from day one? Availability, reliability, cost per hour, mean time between failures, whatever matters for this fleet. And are your statutory and compliance intervals actually captured in the CMMS or sitting in someone's memory? Because here's the number that should worry you. You get one shot, one, at a clean baseline on a brand new asset, up to your first honeymoon year.
And if that data's rubbish,
you're comparing the next 10 years of that machine's life against a number you can't trust. There's no do-over on the first year baseline.
All right, let's run all three of those through the PCR Triad because it's fully exposed here.
Performance first. No verified master data means you can't plan, so you're reactive from day one. And that's the gap between the 90% availability we said was achievable back in the people episode and what you actually get when the crew's working blind.
Cost. And we've already put real numbers on this one today. An 11-week wait on an operator's seat isn't a stranded shift, it's a stranded quarter. Some machines are worth thousands of dollars an hour in production. That's not a rounding error, Drew. That's real money sitting on a hard stand doing nothing.
And risk is where systems bites hardest of the three. Tribal knowledge dependency is an operational risk. Ask the site that lost years of asset-specific know-how in one afternoon. No documented baseline is a commercial risk. You're flying blind for the rest of that asset's life. And if the statutory intervals aren't captured in the CMMS, that's a compliance exposure that can shut a site down, not just embarrass it.
And that's the theme of the whole lens. Systems are invisible right up until the moment they fail, and then it's the most visible thing on site. Nobody celebrates a verified bill of materials, but it's the difference between a team that can work effectively from day one and a team that's working blind.
All right, Pete, let's bring it home.
Here's this week's break tip. You don't need a new asset to run this one. Tomorrow morning, pick one asset on your site and take a look at the documented procedures and BOM for the next service or component change. Then, spend the time and walk through with the team to confirm the procedure document is correct and if all the parts are identified and required for the job. If it isn't, there's your gap to make the system better.
And you don't need to tackle every task at once. Every site we have been to has gaps. Focus on the critical equipment giving you the most grief first and work down the list.
Next episode, we close the series on the equipment lens and the idea we've been circling since episode 1. The 80% of a maintenance strategy you can build at a desk, and the 20% you can't build anywhere but standing next to the machine. It's the one that matters most. So subscribe and we'll see you then. Until next time, take care.
And keep those assets running.